Hello, my name is Georgi Chapantidis and this is a video about Draconic Astrology. I am going to introduce to you how you can have a draconic reading of your soul as opposed to your ego, because that's what we're talking about. Now, Draconic Astrology has fallen out of, well, not fallen, it has never been in favor because it's not about your ego, which is based on the sun, which the tropical chart is about, but it's about your soul, which is based on the moon. The moon has always been considered to be a gateway, a portal through which the private aspects of individuality are reflected. And just the way the moon reflects on the sun, but is actually operating in darkness, so does the soul come through the moon, and the draconic chart is basically based on the moon's nodes. And the nodes in astrology are about our future and our past, is basically the trajectory that we've had because we've had lives before this one. Is debatable, but that's how it is done in this astrology. Simply because if you look into your tropical chart and you look at the nodes, the north node very clearly shows you a path of where you are headed based on things that you have to learn, experiences that you are interested in exploring, because you haven't mastered those experiences yet. You may have problems attaining these things because your south node represents your past, which is the opposite. And the past is what we've already known, been there, done that. So that is why in Draconic Astrology, when we look at the nodes, we look at your past before you incarnated into this life, because the tropical chart is the based chart on your conditioning, your ego, and your ego is really just an amalgamation of your environment, the conditions of your mother, your father, things that you've been growing up with, defense mechanisms that you had to develop to simply deal and cope with the environment, because the environment is threatening, the environment is challenging, this world changes you, forces you to adapt. And these adaptations become patterns, lifelong patterns, ingrained in your DNA. And these patterns you can see in the tropical chart. So that's not what we're going to talk about today. Today we will talk about what the draconic chart actually is. And for that I've picked a little example for you. I've chosen Michael Jackson's chart, and I've looked at his tropical before, but this is his draconic chart, and I want to use this chart to explain to you how you can read the draconic chart and how you can extract meaning from it. Because, you can see here, just like the tropical chart, you have all the planets there. You have the sun, the moon, the ascendant, Mercury, Venus, Pluto, blah blah blah. You have all the normal aspects, but you're not supposed to read them in the same way. Still, the interpretation is pretty much the same. So if you look at the moon in Leo for Michael Jackson, moon in Leo, the traditional interpretation is that this is someone who grows up with the emotional impulses and tendencies, but he needs to perform in order to be safe, in order to be accepted by his environment. So maybe this was a child that had to prove himself to his mother because the mother had a very strong developed ego, or she expected the child to have a strong personality. And these high expectations are reflected in the Leo moon. But in the draconic chart, you don't have a mother because The Draconic chart is not based on your mother. It's not based on your environment. So what then is the moon based on? The moon, in traditional astrology, represents your private life. It represents the aspects of you that are about feeling safe. What makes you feel safe is that which inevitably binds you to the physical realm. Like the moon binds you to your emotions, binds you to your needs, makes you dependent on yourself, the way a child is dependent on its mother. So that's where the symbology actually comes from. And in the Draconic chart, we have an individual with moon in Leo who, like the tropical chart, has a need to perform. But the difference is that while the tropical chart are behaviors that you will express, because you have to express them, the tropical chart is about the tendencies and impulses where you have to do this, like you're compelled. Something inside you is telling you, if you don't do this, things are not going to work out for you. And no matter how much you try to fight it, you will always feel empty or like something is missing when you don't align and cooperate and harmonize with your tropical chart. But with a Draconic chart, you don't have to do this. You don't have impulses that force you to behave in a certain way. The Draconic chart is more like a deeper layer. Like when you look at an onion and you go through the onion, you have the outer layer, the skin. Everyone can see the skin. Just like you can see the tropical chart, you can see the behavior. But with the Draconic chart, everything is happening inside of you. Everything is happening inside your mind. And you don't have to behave in that way. But if you develop a strong personality, if you are very confident, very comfortable with your tropical chart, then the Draconic chart will come out very naturally, automatically, because the Draconic chart is ultimately not about what you have to do, but about what you want to do. It's what you want. So let's say, here we have Michael Jackson. In his tropical chart, Michael Jackson has moon in Pisces. So this is someone who has to be compassionate, who has to use his imagination to retreat from the world and protect himself from his own sensitivity. But in the Draconic chart, nothing that you have tells you that this is something you have to do. The moon in the Draconic chart tells you that Michael Jackson wanted to perform like a Leo. So this is something closer to his heart. This is something closer to what his soul has experienced many times. It's not just that you have a Draconic chart because you've been doing this repeatedly. You have a Draconic chart because your soul has its own uniqueness, its own expression, its own dynamics, its own whatever. And here, the moon in Leo simply shows how this has been expressed in the individual, based on the calculation of a moon's nodes. So then we have the ascendant in Leo, which again, like the moon in Leo, very similar, but the ascendant in the Draconic chart tells us how an individual wants to adopt certain qualities that he wants to bring into the world. So for example, if you have a Leo ascendant, the qualities that you value the most are generosity, strong personality, someone who's very, very connected to his desires, his passions. somebody who creates something through those passions, someone who defines himself through the creative products that he brings out. So this is something that he values, Michael Jackson, according to this chart. He values how to create something that other people can appreciate, because with something what he creates is about him. It's about him personally. All fire ascendants in the Draconic are about personalization. These are issues, challenges, difficulties that the soul is going through, where all the focus is on my personal goals. How do I bring out my personality and let other people know who I am in relation to them, so that I can assert how separate I am from them. So for example, if this person had the opposite, had an Aquarius ascendant instead, the person would be about sharing how unique they are, how different they are. It's not about how you can create something that other people will like, that other people will love, that other people will feel attracted to with the Aquarius ascendant. With the Aquarius ascendant, it would be about how do I create something which changes other people, but which other people may not relate to at all, because it is not how they are. So this is about differentiating you as well, because it's masculine. With all masculine ascendants in general, you have these issues of, here's something I have to do, and this is somehow different from my environment, from other people, because it's extroverted and it's active, it's dynamic, it's changing. And with Michael Jackson, you can see how the ascendant in Leo and the moon in Leo have played out. The way that he caters to an audience, and the audience loves him. And this basically shows us an individual who learned over many lifetimes how to actually be liked and loved by other people. Someone who knows how to gain the hearts of other people. Someone who knows how to attract people. Because Leo is about nobility, regality, about making things happen that other people will be entertained by, be inspired by, they feel drawn to it, because it represents something that makes people feel like there's somebody who's better than me. But this person loves themselves and loves me, and they want me to love them. And this whole archetype is the lover archetype, because really when I'm talking about this, it's all about love. And that's really the main issue with Leo moon and Leo ascendant. So that's what the person is focusing on in their mind, in their music, in their creative productions, in their relationships, in their one-to-one encounters. It's all about the question of how much love can I generate? How much love can I get out of this person? And how loved will the other person feel by me once all of this is over? And of course, because the topic of love puts an enormous pressure on that individual, we can see why this has played out for Michael Jackson. Because he tried to make lots of performances, one after another, taking very, very few breaks. Over many years he has done so many live performances that he completely burned himself out. So the pressure was actually too much. And this is why we have also the moon on the ascendant. It dignifies the ascendant, shows us that this individual was very, very attached to gaining that love, giving that love, being appreciated. And of course, we have the rest of the chart. And how the ascendant relates to the rest of the chart is especially dependent on the ruler of the ascendant, which in this case is the sun. So let's say we have a draconic sun here, and the sun is aspected with the part of fortune and Juno and its opposition to the moon. And it's in Aquarius. So all of these aspects will modify the whole way that this person thinks about themselves and how they accomplish the goals of the ascendant. Because you know that with your tropical ascendant, the tropical, you know it's about goals. You know it's about relationships, one-on-one encounters. But with the draconic chart, it's about goals that are also long-term. This is about the values that you have and you need to bring out. And the way you do that is through the sun. And the sun is in Aquarius here. So the sun in Aquarius in the draconic chart, for example, would tell me that this person has to do something different. Has to do something that makes people think. And something that has to do with humanitarianism, with social evolution and change. Things that have to do with Uranus. Things that have to do with changing people's minds, maybe shocking them or awakening them to something that they didn't know about before. And this is how the person then creates these things, so they get the goals met for the ascendant. Now, if this sun is conjunction with the part of fortune and with Juno, that means that whatever the person is creating, Juno will take a part in it. So, the goddess of relationships, everything around marriage, everything around making music where two people are together, and maybe they're experiencing breakups, or maybe they're having a family together, maybe there's romance, whatever, this kind of stuff the music would be focusing on. And with a part of fortune, you have more information about the nature of the sun and whether or not the sun is going to be successful. Now obviously, because the part of fortune is about having material success, being successful in charming other people, being liked by other people, having your goals met with others, with the external world, then of course the sun will actually emphasize that, enhance that, and it also will help with success, which, you know, is just what happened with Michael Jackson. But, you know, you can talk about the aspects and the planets, but what you probably noticed with the draconic chart is that all the planets are also in the same houses, like the tropical chart. So the houses from the draconic chart translate into the tropical one. So here it's like there's a transition. It's like you have an amalgamation of the tropical and draconic chart through the houses. And that's kind of where you have all the similarities in terms of experiences. That's why if your draconic chart experiences would be about your past life, and your past life would be like a sun in the 6th house of all those planets, which is about work, commitments, routines, being very critical of yourself, anxiety, dependency, getting needs met, being kind of by the clock, planning, preparing, thinking ahead. putting those plans in motion and then actually succeeding with his plans, if that's all that the person has focused on in past lives, then simply the tropical chart shows that this is just happening again. So it's just like how it works with the tropical. When the tropical is based on your past and your conditioning in childhood, then draconic is based on past experiences before this incarnation. Whether you want to believe in it or not depends if you can at all relate to your draconic chart. And Michael Jackson, as we know, has completely burned himself out in terms of work. He absolutely was a workaholic when it came to making music. But also is emphasized by Pluto in the 6th house, Mercury in the 6th house, being very critical, and still, with all those planets having so much experience in getting all that work done, he was actually extremely successful despite the enormous pressure that he was under. And another part of his success is the midhaven, because the midhaven is about your career, and here it is in Taurus. So that shows how this person has managed to be so dependable and also so neurotic. Because if Taurus is very fixed, if Taurus is very much like, I do what I am planned to do and I do not go astray, then, of course, the person is going to be very rigid. They're not going to break up their plans, even if their health suffers, even if they get depressed. They have a tendency to be rigid. And then there's Saturn on the midhaven, making the person even more rigid, because Saturn is about responsibilities. So this person, Michael Jackson, felt like he just couldn't not overwork based on that. That's basically like an individual that is just very, very committed to getting the job done. And it's also a signifier of success in your career, because Saturn is about wisdom, authority, competence, and all of these things are, of course, succeeded in that midhaven. And because it's in Taurus in the Draconic chart, it shows a keen business sense, knowing how to earn money, knowing how to generate value, knowing how to be very practical, very organized. So the Draconic chart is basically, if you really want to get down to it, once you learn all about your tropical chart, the Draconic chart is really just like an extension of that. It allows you to look into what aspects are operating within you, and whether these aspects come out or not depends entirely on how much you are controlled by your early childhood conditionings. Because when you read the tropical chart, everything is dependent on what you've been doing before. So if you follow a fixed path, which the South Node, by the way, is about. The South Node, right? Since the Draconic chart is a bit based on the nodes. So if the South Node is about just doing the same, doing what you've been doing before, the tropical chart is basically a lot like that. These are patterns that just consistently stay the same. But in order for the Draconic chart to come out, you actually have to become very, very conscious of what it is you are doing, why are you repeating certain experiences. And if you're not happy with your life, if something's missing, if you don't feel fulfilled, if something just feels empty, if you don't feel inspired, it might be because your values are outdated. Because your values are all based on the tropical chart, which is based on your childhood conditionings. So these values may be things that you have absorbed, things that you've learned, but these are not things that are about you. So this is like the difference between singular individuality, draconic, and the hive mind, the environment, the conditioning, the childhood upbringing, the physical body, the tropical chart. Soul, individuality, I'm separate from these other people. I'm separate from the environment. I'm separate from what I've learned, what I've been doing before, of what I feel that I have to do, but I don't want to do. Don't want? Want. Like draconic want, tropical don't want. I mean, this is just like to help illustrate how simple it actually is to explain it, once you really understand what it's actually about. So now I think I'm pretty much done explaining what Draconic chart is about. I might do another video on this in the future, but I think this is an okay introduction. So, thanks for watching, and bye bye.